This is Marco Reus.
This is Shinji Kagawa.
This is Nuri Sahin.
Hello, this is Jadon Sancho.
And you're listening to the Yellowwall podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 337 of the Yellowwallpod. I'm your host Stefan Butzko, and today we will overhype the 3-0 win against Borussia Mönchengladbach in the Bundesliga opener, and we will preview the upcoming game against 4th place FC Augsburg, which will happen on Saturday, and we will revel in Schadenfreude in the Schalke segment. For all that and more, joins me once again Matthias Zug. Hello Matthias, I'm not even gonna ask how you're doing, I'm just gonna ask how's the weather today.
Hey, Stefan, it's cloudy right now, believe it or not, which is not something that happens often in Colorado. So, it's cloudy. How are you?
Unbelievable scenes. Also here, Adam Dorowski at Fußballtwit on Twitter. A lot of people already know him from his passion for the pre-assist / hockey assist. Hello, Adam. How are you doing?
Great. How are you guys doing?
You want to introduce yourselves to new-time listeners as well?
Sure thing. So my name is Adam Dorowski, Fußballtwit, as Stefan mentioned. I'm a product designer and developer. I do some consulting for FBref, which is a football stats site I hope that many of you know. And just a huge Dortmund fan. Glad to be here.
Awesome. And we obviously have a sponsor for this episode.
Wir sind komplett schuldenfrei. Wir zahlen keinen einzigen Euro an Zinsen.
Yeah, this episode is sponsored by the Borussia Dortmund Fan Club London, and they have launched the Borussia Dortmund Fan Club London podcast and have interviewed Raphael Honigstein this week, so please go check it out. And if you want to be a sponsor for an episode or whatever else, go to patreon.com/theyellowwall for more information. And now it is time to dive into the game.
Emre Can, it's in for Reyna, Bellingham, and now Reyna with a sighted goal! And Borussia Dortmund are up and running in the Bundesliga. And it's Reyna's first ever goal in the Bundesliga. It's Erling Haaland's first ever penalty in the Bundesliga. Can he keep his cool against Jan Sommer? Yes, he can! Erling Haaland doubles Dortmund's lead. The job completed by Hummels, and Jadon Sancho will set off, and he's got pace. And he's got Paslak in support, and Erling Haaland! Game, set, match, Borussia Dortmund!
Yeah, that was an emphatic win against Borussia Mönchengladbach and the 12th win on the bounce against the Foles. There were 9,300 fans in attendance at the Westfalenstadion on Saturday in the Topspiel, and really got to enjoy a really nice game of football, I will say. So, Adam, since you are the guest, you will have the first word for your initial reactions on the lineup, which I think was pretty much the same as we saw in the Cup, apart from Roman Bürki slotting back in. And then, sadly, a bit later into the game, Torgan Hazard picked up an injury, but nevertheless, what did you make of Favre's pickings?
Yeah, I guess it wasn't terribly surprising since it was the same lineup, aside from Bürki, that we saw in the Cup, but it was nice to see that Torgan Hazard was still on the left wing back spot since he did so well in the Cup there. Obviously terrible to see him leave the game so early. I was a little bit surprised, honestly, to see Bellingham and Reyna both in the starting lineup. I thought that it was because it was a cup game that they were both starting, and that maybe Julian Brandt and maybe others were being saved for the Bundesliga start. But no, this is what Favre's really into right now, is getting the 17-year-olds on the pitch, and that's both exciting, maybe a little bit nerve-wracking, but they both did really well, obviously, and very pleased with the 11 and how they did.
Yeah, Matthias, I thought that at least visually, Gladbach were a bit more dominant in the first half, especially until Dortmund scored. What did you make of the opening minutes, half hour, whatnot, of the game?
I thought it was pretty even. Like you said, Gladbach played well. Roman Bürki with really the only true save he had to make, but he had to make two of them right away. And kind of that grabbing behind him move, which in first look in live action, it was kind of hard to tell, but then in replay you saw just how good of a save it was. And that really, that saved Dortmund's bacon because, no pun intended, because of course that allowed the match still to stay 0-0, and then the rest resulted from there. I'll be honest, after Dortmund's first goal, it was still kind of even, but latest after the second goal, I just feel like Gladbach weren't really that present. And I know Marco Rose said, well, if you look at the statistics, it was a pretty even match. But if you actually look at the statistics and look a little bit past the basic, okay, you had 2% more possession, you had 1% more pass success, you won a few more tackles and obviously aerial duels as well. But if you look at, for instance, shots, very interesting. Dortmund had 10 to their 8, but Gladbach, of their 8 shots, only 2 were on target, whereas Dortmund 4 on target, 1 on the woodwork. And from the, let's say, attacking trio of Dortmund, of Haaland, Sancho, and Reyna, they produced 7 shots, and the attacking trio of Wolf, Stindl, and Hofmann produced 5 shots, 2 of them in short sequence that Bürki saved. So really, I feel like after a while, Dortmund just were significantly more the aggressor, as you will, more proactive, whereas Gladbach seemed a little bit passive for long stretches of the match. And you can also see that just Dortmund attempted way more dribbles, and Gladbach were just happy to have the ball, and Dortmund were okay with them having the ball because they weren't really doing much with it, it seems, after the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, I think Abel Mecharos' last episode was absolutely right when he said that it's probably a good time to play against Gladbach because they were starting without Thuram and Plea and with Hannes Wolf, Lars Stindl and Jonas Hofmann, which are decent Bundesliga players, don't get me wrong, but it's not the full strength attacking Gladbach you can see. And I think also without Zakaria in midfield, it's a bit of a different Gladbach side. I think as the season progresses, we will see them get on a higher pace than we've seen on Saturday. But you can only beat the team that's in front of you. So what I really liked about Dortmund's front 3 or 4 or however you want to see it is actually that there was a lot of fluidity. Dortmund had the back 3, and then they had the midfield with the 4 players, the 2 wingbacks, and then Bellingham and Witsel, even though Witsel was a bit deeper. And then you had Reyna and Sancho, I thought, did an excellent job of just floating around everywhere. They dropped quite deep at times, and I don't know, I thought they had a really good tandem when it came to positional play to really connect attack with midfield and defense, which is something that Dortmund has historically sometimes done not so well, especially in the Klopp and Tuchel era, where and the Stöger era, of course, where they were gaping holes. And right now, both have such a free-flowing role, but I think it's Favre just trusting that intelligence that both players sort of know in which spaces to appear and to build cohesion. And obviously, with Erling Haaland right now, you also have a striker which really has an advantage over Alcázar or Aubameyang in the sense that you can punt it to him a little bit here and there, and he will actually hold up the ball, and that really helps Dortmund out a ton, even if Haaland isn't too involved right now. If he must, his hold-up play, I think, is quite decent, and obviously a point where he still needs to improve, but already is doing well, and I think has improved since he arrived at Dortmund. So that's, to me, a big positive. And what I really liked is that Emre Can had some really nice attacking runs. He was overlapping Meunier and then cutting him to the inside. I think there was one pass toward Can, where he then overlapped Meunier and got it in the box and then tried to cut back. I think that pass ultimately was blocked, but a couple of nice sequences where you can see what Dortmund are trying out in order to create chances against opponents. I think in that particular sequence, Axel Witsel then dropped back into the backline. So there's always someone to cover for these runs. And Dortmund certainly have these players to do so. Now, Adam, I've said on the previous episode, or the one before, that we probably won't have to wait too long for Gio Reyna's first Bundesliga goal. Now, I will give him extra credit for celebrating it, not with a dab, but that all being said, how did you see his performance from the start, which is obviously a bit of a new role for him now that he is, starting in the first league game and the first cup game, and not just someone who gets a run out in like the final game of the season or so?
I find it very, very exciting. The finish that he made was just a beautiful finish. He totally caught Jan Sommer by surprise, it seems, just by making that shot from that point. And like you said, the fluidity that he has with the front four, he has this great understanding with Haaland. I feel like the two of them link up incredibly well. There's so much to like so far. I don't want to get too excited, but
I kept the word in the intro, the overhyped word, because I knew we were gonna overhype this just as we did the cup game. But so that gives you, with that disclaimer, all the liberty you need to hype as much as you want now.
Well, I mean, as an American, you're just kind of sitting here like, is he better than Pulisic at this point in his development? Maybe, and it feels like maybe he is. They're playing a different role. He's playing more centrally, which is far more important. And well, he's doing it. I mean, it's a central role in this type of offense, and that's not something that Pulisic was putting on his shoulders at this point. He was a winger who was just kind of feeding passes into the strikers and occasionally going for the goal himself. I just feel like Reyna's involved in everything right now, and it's very exciting to see.
Yeah, Matthias, how happy are you with the American citizenship in your passports?
Well, I mean, it's very positive. I think. I mean, everybody knows I've been pretty hard on the U.S. men's national team, which is an easy thing to be in the last few years, given how much of a dumpster fire the U.S. men's national team has been. But what I like about Gio Reyna is he, okay, we're going to overhype, right? I mean, that's the theme right now. I'm not going to compare him at this stage in age with Christian Pulisic because of what Adam just said. Pulisic was more of a winger. Gio Reyna reminds me, and yes, this is overhyping, and hopefully his career trajectory after a certain time goes in a different direction, but he reminds me a little bit of Mario Götze in the sense of at that age, his positional awareness, his passing intelligence, his off the ball movement, and his finishing, because that finish was pretty superb. So I think the future is bright for the U.S. men's national team, provided they can get an actual real coach to coach them. But the talent pool is definitely deepening.
Yeah, definitely. And that goal was obviously assisted by Jude Bellingham. Adam, your thoughts on his initial Bundesliga debut?
Let's just go all in and overhype. I feel like this guy is like 3 times the player that I thought he was when we were even linked to him. Just going back to Reyna for a second, like he completed 28 out of 29 passes. And I know that's not always like the perfect metric, but from how far ahead he's playing, it almost makes you wonder if like Favre sees him as like Brandt on a good day, and he just feels like he's far more likely to get that Brandt on a good day performance out of Reyna each time. But to bounce back to Bellingham, I don't even know where to start. Like, this guy does everything already. He had a great performance in preseason, and that made me wonder if like it was just the opponents he was playing, that we played some pretty low level opponents there. But then he did it in the cup, and now he's doing it against Gladbach, and it makes you wonder, like, what is the limit for this guy? He's already playing against like a Champions League club, and he's holding his own. So it's very easy to get super hyped about this, and here I am doing it.
Yeah, which is only fair. I mean, when there's reason to be excited, even if it's early in the season, I think you should just enjoy it while it lasts. So might as well do that now. But yeah, I also think that Bellingham is here to stay, and he has a lot of skills readily available, as we've discussed previously. But I will also give a shout out, especially in this game, to Axel Witsel, because Gladbach tried to press Dortmund in multiple ways, and I thought that his press resistance and his positioning, which is usually on the mark very early in the season, was once again excellent, and really allowed Dortmund to evade Gladbach and not allow many chances and not have silly turnovers, and makes this performance overall, even though you had a lot of young players up top, a very mature performance, I would say, especially this early in the season. Maybe this is the time to zoom out a little bit and then look at the bigger picture of how Dortmund have progressed under Lucien Favre and what team they have available right now. And I think it just needs to be credited that they managed to beat Gladbach this dominantly 3-0 without too many scares. Also not late in the game. It was all very controlled, and Axel Witsel, I thought, played a big part in that. So this is for the overall hype going down the season, probably the most important takeaway, that Dortmund now have acquired a level of maturity where they can play against such an opponent without too many nerves. And we know in the past how nervy Dortmund can be. Obviously this is subject to change, and another team can maybe provoke different things from Dortmund, but from what we've seen so far and looking back at the last season, I think there is a development that deserves some honorary mention. And also obviously while we're with the honorary mentions here, Felix Passlack coming on, not having played for Dortmund in many years, and playing that performance. I know he probably should have gotten the 3-0, and he probably should have had an assist on one counterattack, on one breakaway, where he probably should have passed it to Haaland and not to Hummels, who we all know cannot cross with his left foot. Tried anyway, and looked pretty similar to what happens when I try to cross with my left foot. Off balance, and the ball just goes wayward. But he had to come on like 15 minutes into the game, where you're just cooling down after your initial warm-up pre-game. So not easy for him, but I thought he did an excellent job and was super solid on the left side. And if Rafael Guerreiro won't be fit in time for the next game, I'm not really worried about having Passlack in that lineup, which is just very positive. And I think Sebastian Kehl said yesterday that Dortmund have right now no plan of selling him, and why. I mean, Dortmund's fullbacks are sort of dropping like flies, and Passlack can be utilized left and right. Obviously, there's Marius Wolf hanging around, but for the left side at least, Passlack is to me the better option. Matthias, your thoughts on Passlack making such a comeback to the surprise of everyone, including himself probably?
Yeah, I think the only comeback with greater surprise was last season in Paderborn, Marcel Schmelzer. But Passlack, I didn't think he would possibly come on, but when you really look at the bench and you see who is available, then I guess it kind of made sense, unless you would have put, they could have theoretically put a Kanji out there and this stuff, but I guess Favre just didn't want to mess. I mean, he could even put Chan out there, but he decided to just go with a guy who's actually a trained fullback, and he did exceedingly well against a Gladbach side that, even without Plea Thuram, can pose questions to fullbacks. And no, it was super solid. The entire back line really didn't seem concerned or overly threatened too many times. That's why I reject that extreme silver lining press conference from Marco Rose, where he said, basically we were more or less on equal terms, and you weren't, because the Gladbach defense was under far more duress than the Dortmund defense ever was in this match, aside from one scene. But Gladbach had multiple of those scenes and obviously conceded a few goals accordingly.
Yeah, Adam, your thoughts on Mr. Paslak making his comeback?
Yeah, I mean, it was great to see. I mean, they were missing a few players in Gladbach, but they weren't missing Stefan Leiner, and that's a guy that I was worried about going into this, that he would be matched up against Torgan Hazard first. And, you know, in his 18 minutes or so, Torgan basically had Leiner in his back pocket, did really well with him, and Paslak picked up right where he left off. I feel like Leiner was really kind of neutralized through the whole game, which was great, because I think that he's a very strong player, obviously, can run like crazy. And even though pace isn't Paslak's thing, he certainly held his own against him. And like you said, the attacking passes, and I feel like, there was that one great one early on that he had to Haaland, where he kind of dribbled it off of his nose and then launched it up, and Haaland probably could have put that one away. And he made a couple of runs there. I mean, if there's one thing that I can relate to as a football player, is when a player looks at you, decides, no, I actually don't want to pass to you right now. I'd rather go to somebody else. And that happened a couple times in that game too.
Yeah, but overall very, very positive, and encouraging, really. Also speaks for the overall structure and balance, because if you need to change parts, let's say, on a well-oiled machine, it usually works if you plug in someone else, and I think that's a symptom of a good team. So I'm obviously very happy. Matthias, I think the penalty shot, or the penalty that Dortmund in the end actually got and Haaland converted, came off a counterattack, and then the final goal, the 3-0, before human victory cigars, Marco Reus and Julian Brandt were subbed in, to quote Lars Pollmann. Also a counterattack, so something that makes me really happy, because I think if I had criticized one thing repeatedly last season, is that Dortmund were a bit too careless with their counter-attacking situations. So given how well they did, is this something you think we'll see more consistently, or do you think Gladbach were just a little silly in allowing it?
I think it's a combination of both. Now I will, raise one red flag, in that there were two situations earlier in the match where Jadon Sancho just didn't pass the ball to Haaland. Was once, maybe, I don't remember who the second situation was, where if he would have played the pass, Dortmund would have scored a goal because of the way the situation unfolded. But instead, Sancho held onto the ball and dribbled a little bit more and just slowed down the pace of the game. And I'll be honest, on that counterattack, I was worried, because he was waiting and waiting and waiting before he played that pass. And if you look at the replay of it, he never really looked to the right where Haaland was running. He just kind of played it into the space where he expected a guy to be, which that's what shows a great player and automatisms in attack. But I do have that concern, because it happened a couple of times. I mean, Dortmund could have put this match away arguably 10, 20 minutes earlier had Sancho played the pass that, thankfully, in that situation, he did play. But I have to say, the pre-assist has to go to Mats Hummels, who headed the ball right into Sancho's path and then kept running forward, which really surprised me. I mean, Haaland blew past him eventually, which isn't surprising. But if Dortmund is as efficient as they were in this match moving forward, then I think they're in store for a very good season.
Yeah, obviously you can't expect 100% of the counterattacks to come to fruition. That's just completely unrealistic. But I think finishing off two, in effect, if you include that penalty, it's already a pretty strong showing, and then more or less all that you need. And really goes to show how important right now it is for Dortmund to take a lead in the game, because I think when Gladbach could have maybe gone ahead as well, but once Dortmund did, I thought they really used that to their own advantage, and it never really felt like Gladbach had too much of a lifeline coming into this game. Now, that being said, Adam, I think there was a penalty shot of Mats Hummels bringing down Jonas Hofmann, if I'm not mistaken, and he sort of tumbled him over in the box. The ball was already gone. I'm not entirely sure if it was Hofmann or not, but to me it was a penalty. VAR did not intervene in the sense that Dr. Felix Brüch, the referee, went to the review area as he did for Dortmund's penalty. What did you make of that no call?
To me, it looked like it was the trailing leg that caused the issue, and with this one too, kind of like the one that was called for Dortmund as well. Now, with Reyna's penalty that he drew, I feel like I'm not positive if the front foot was taken or if it was the trailing leg that was taken out. I still could not tell after like all of those replays. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I don't understand how one's a penalty and one's not.
Yeah, neither do I. I think Dortmund just got really lucky, unless, Matthias, you have a diverging opinion.
I do, actually. So I will say it's a foul, but it's not a penalty. I mean, how often do we see matches where a defender comes in and shoulder checks an attacker and it's not a penalty? I can't really remember many situations where that's called a penalty. If it's outside the box, I do, it has been called a foul on occasion, but for the most part, refs, be it in Germany, Italy, England, so on, don't tend to call the shoulder charge a penalty or even a foul that often. So yes, technically, it was a foul and then a penalty because he didn't attempt to play the ball. He played the man. So by those rules, yes. But if you look at the consistency, which is always something I bemoan about refereeing consistently across the board, shoulder checks don't tend to get called. So foul, yes, penalty, no, if that makes sense.
All right, fair enough. I can live with it. And I think ultimately the decision that the refereeing team also came up with, even though I think when you look at the feet on the ground and Mats Hummels sort of tangling up with Hofmann or whoever the hell it was, I can not complain if the ref points to the spot, but obviously since this is the Yellowwallpod and not the Nordkurve-Pod or whatever Borussia Mönchengladbach have in their Borussia Park, it's a good no call. I totally agree. So moving on, Adam, unless you have some final thoughts on the Gladbach game, maybe Marco Reus or something else, I think we can turn our attention to Augsburg.
Just that it was great to see Marco Reus. Other than that, I think we can go to Augsburg.
All right. So, disclaimer, I've not really prepared much for the Augsburg game. My note sheet is literally blank, other than that they beat Union Berlin 3-1 on the opening match day. And that's pretty much it. Adam, have you made more use of the ESPN Plus account that you probably have and watched the Augsburg game, or at least highlights of that game, to tell me what Dortmund can expect now?
I did check out some highlights, but not the full match. And I also did check out the match report on FBref, of course, to look for some interesting stats. And a couple of players that stood out to me in the first match against Union, of course, was the fact that they have Gregoritsch back, which they got back from Schalke, who he left, did nothing at Schalke, came back and scored a goal, which it seems like that's something that we seem to see a lot. And then another thing that I noticed was Daniel Caligiuri, who left Schalke on a free and went to Augsburg, ended up getting 25 pressures, which would have been more than any Schalke player got this week, and they really could have used that.
Yeah, and obviously Vargas scored a goal. This is obviously a high alert for Dortmund, because last time Dortmund met Augsburg early in the season, I don't know if he scored or assisted, but he made Lukas Piszczek look really old. So Augsburg definitely have some weapons. They obviously now have Gikiewicz in their goal, which is interesting, sort of swapped with Union Berlin there. And yeah, otherwise a pretty normal side, I would say. Pretty normal Augsburg team with Khedira and Greso in midfield, and Haulau and Udukai as center backs. So there are obviously a lot of teams in the Bundesliga that will fight for the midfield spots, and I believe Augsburg will be one of them. I don't necessarily see them as a side that will battle relegation. I think they will finish in a comfortable 13th or 12th spot. Matthias, do you have any intel on Saturday's opponent?
Well, unlike you two slackers, I watched the entire match of Augsburg against Union Berlin because we do have ESPN Plus and thankfully no longer Fox Sports. No, but I mean, I actually did watch the entire match and the highlights. So there. My thoughts are, I still think Augsburg are a relegation candidate as long as Heiko Herrlich is their manager. And I'll be honest, they got blind ass lucky against Union Berlin. Because Union Berlin, who I picked to get relegated, are just really bad. They are not a good team. Now, you would think about Augsburg, where you kind of know they're going to be physical, they're going to play longer balls, and they're going to cross the ball a lot. They've got Niederlechner and Gregoritsch, right? And Union Berlin are going to play physical, long balls, and cross the ball a lot, right? To think that both teams were not able to properly defend crossed ball. I mean, think about it. Of the goals scored, you had a few headers go in, and two of the goals that Union Berlin conceded, which are, the Vargas goal and the Gregoritsch goal, were both the same goal. It was a simple cross from out wide. Once it was Framberger, once it was Iago, and the player, be it Vargas or Gregoritsch, standing completely unmarked between two central defenders in Knoche and Friedrich, who had a horrendous day, who stood very far apart, and it was an open header. That will not happen with Dortmund because guess what? There are three defenders in the middle. So they're not going to get quite that open of a look. The fact that most of the attacking play came over the Augsburg left side, so Vargas and Iago. That's the side of Can, Meunier, and so on. And of course, oftentimes you'll have Sancho come across that side. So I feel like there'll be a better balance to defend against that side. I'm not worried about Framberger and Caligiuri going up against whoever is on the Dortmund left side. Niederlechner is always uncomfortable, but he's not really a great goal scorer. Obviously, that means he's going to score a goal. Gregoritsch is the one, and Vargas are the two that really concern me, but I feel like we've got more with Meunier and Can on that side. There's a lot more solidity to be able to stop Vargas from, all those long ball counterattacks that I remember seeing at the Westfalenstadion the last time they played against each other. So Augsburg did not play well. Union just actually played worse. And the key, if you look at it, in the entire Dortmund-Gladbach match, there were 10 aerial challenges over 90 minutes. In this match, Augsburg gegen Berlin, there were 47. So that alone tells you what these two teams are all about. The other thing is, of course, there were 25 challenges, tackles in the Dortmund-Gladbach match. There were 33 in this one. So you're going to look for long balls, crosses, and physicality. It's going to be a typical Augsburg being nasty type match. Their defenders, Udokai is pretty good. Govalov, or however you pronounce his last name, he's okay. Gikiewicz is the main thing. He's a huge upgrade over what Augsburg had in goal, and he will save them some points like he did against Union Berlin. Union Berlin almost had 60% of the possession, pass success of 81 versus 74%, and outshot them 15-9. And most of the Augsburg shots were off target, but they did block 6 of those Berlin shots. So it kind of shows you their tactic is they're just going to try to low block the hell out of Dortmund. And we know that always produces a frustrating match. So it's going to be difficult, but Augsburg, in my opinion, are not very good.
Well, I will defer that question over to you, Adam, because I think Matthias really nicely laid out what kind of match Dortmund can expect. It's a classic side that will try to hit Dortmund on a counter. Do you think that they will be successful with the likes of Gregoritsch and Vargas?
Well, Vargas, like you said, scared us last time, made Piszczek look really old. And Gikiewicz, like Matthias said, that's the main difference from last year that I see. Like, Gikiewicz is going to bring his unreal long ball ability and make for a really weird match, I think. So Gigovic is one of my favorite statistical goalkeepers. FBref has this stat called progressive passing yardage, which is the passing distance toward the goal, not towards the end line, but toward the goal. And goalkeepers tend to get a lot of it, but Gigovic kicked the ball progressively 3 miles longer than literally anybody else in Europe. Like, that's how far he is ahead. That's not even an exaggeration. He was 5,280 yards longer than anybody else in Europe, more than Jordan Pickford, who was second. So there's going to be a lot of like just leaving the midfield out of the entire game. So he's going to be launching these balls, and we're going to need our defenders to get these aerial duels in. Like Matthias said, there's going to be a lot more aerial duels in this one. Niederlechner is going to be trying to get these off of Hummels and Chan and Akanji, and that's going to be where a big part of the game is. As soon as Gigovic gets it, it's just going to be launched.
Yeah, I think this is where the likes of Jude Bellingham also comes in handy over, say, Julian Brandt, because I think he also add some aerial prowess, and I feel like this Augsburg game might actually remind them of the English Championship tier. So we'll see about that. Matthias, do you think that Dortmund will make any changes to the lineup, minus Hazard, of course, who is out injured, that are necessary, especially with the Super Cup on the midweek game in mind?
I don't necessarily see Lucien Favre putting a lot of importance on the Super Cup. Getting as many points as possible, especially against these types of difficult opponents that somehow like to steal points from Dortmund, is a higher priority. So I expect the same lineup. Obviously, then Passlack will start at left back unless Guerrero is fit. So that's really the only change I see. Other than that, why change? Everyone is in a good flow, playing well. And like I said, I mean, Jude Bellingham, he adds that defensive solidity that also frees up Witsel a little bit. So, if he's pairing him with someone who's more attacking, that means Witsel has to be a little bit more defensive. So, I wouldn't change anything unless, of course, Guerrero's fit. Then I'd put him at the left wing back position.
Yeah, the last time Dortmund faced Augsburg was obviously the famous almost turnaround game where Erling Haaland came on and scored a hat-trick as a substitute in his very first game for Dortmund, and obviously created a big hype and a lot of headlines. Matthias already mentioned Heiko Herrlich being the guy on the touchline. Adam, do you think that Augsburg will cause Dortmund a lot of trouble in this game, as they've previously done, and B, that eventually they will concede or lose due to their own stupidity, like, say, eating 2 counterattacks or 3 counterattacks, including Erling Haaland?
This is a tough question. I thought about this one a lot, because last season, both the games against Augsburg, Dortmund scored 5 times. Now, one of them they conceded once, one of them they conceded 3 times. So as far as what kind of match we're going to see here, obviously Gigovic is better, but another wild card is the fact that Augsburg has Gregoritsch, Niederlechner, Finn Bogus, and Vargas, all of them healthy now, which I don't know the last time that's happened. So they will have some attacking talent out there. So we could get burned on a couple of counterattacks. But then again, we've got the 3 at the back, which makes for a much more stable defense, which we only had one time when we faced them last season. I don't know if I answered the question. I probably circled it several times, though.
Yeah, there's not a definitive question. I guess we just have to wait and see what happens. Adam, also to you the same question. Any big changes you would make to the lineup, or would you keep it as much as intact as possible, especially considering the Super Cup right now is usually an overhyped preseason friendly, but now that the Bundesliga is already ongoing, I think it's the least relevant it has ever been. So I would not put any emphasis on this game at all. So I would just use the Super Cup maybe as really a friendly and things to try out, and concern myself more with Bundesliga points where you want to win stuff. So in that context, would you make any changes?
You know, I would love to see Dortmund just forget about the Super Cup as well, but I think there is a psychological blow you can take by losing big to Bayern. And this is the one trophy that Bayern didn't win last season, so they might be pretty interested in taking this one. I don't think that they're going to change the lineup because I think this is now the first choice lineup, which leads to some questions that I have about, like, where does Julian Brandt fit in with things right now? He's only playing a little bit of off the bench, so maybe he's going to get a look in the Super Cup, and this is going to be his chance to have a big match.
Yeah, Adam, I'll just ricochet that question right back at you because right now, when we see Julian Brandt being brought on, usually with Reus in tandem, Favre switches more to a 3-5-2, and you see Reus then leading the line and Brandt actually not coming on for the number 8, which would be Bellingham, but more for the number 10-ish guy, which is Gio Reyna. I think that's a bit of a change to last season, just in the position for Brandt. What do you make of that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not exactly sure what Favre sees as his strongest position right now, or if he even fits in the lineup that he's using right now, the 3-4-1-2. So I'm not really sure how to answer that. He's having a tough time fitting in right now, and I think that obviously Favre wanted to have 2 teams worth of players, so he's going to have to work these players in, and I think the Super Cup is a chance to do it. So I think getting him in that number 10, maybe with Reus leading the line, since these are the 2 that have not been starting from the beginning, it's probably a way to do that in the Super Cup.
Yeah, I wonder if we also get Reyna to see in the Super Cup. Matthias, same question to you. What's in store for Julian Brandt in the coming weeks and match days?
Well, I think he's going to play in the Super Cup. I really hope he's not this season's Mario Götze. I know we kind of made that joke, but it would be pretty bad. I think he'll get back into the flow, and there's so many matches still to come. Just even this calendar year, let alone this season, he's going to get plenty of time and try to build his confidence back. I think it's actually a good thing to do this with him versus all the expectations that were on him, because he really had a flat second half of the season, whereas a lot of his teammates actually had a really good second half of the season. So giving him a little bit of respite now that you have multiple options, I think is a good thing.
Yeah, I actually think it's an excellent thing because that actually lights a little fire on his butt and, sends him the message that he can take a starting spot at Dortmund for granted and needs to work a little harder, which is something I think Julian Brandt definitely needs to do, especially in the defensive department. I think he, could use the gym a little bit more. I think he needs to bulk up a little bit, get a bit more physical, and get himself in a better shape, which I think will only complement his overall game because his technique, I don't want to say it's flawless, but it's pretty darn excellent, and he has so many skills. And I think if he boosts his fitness levels, his stamina, and all these kinds of attributes, I think that will make a better play out of him. And I think for him right now, the path back into the starting 11, if he wants to be there, it's exactly that. It's gaining more fitness and physicality is something where he is lacking, especially in comparison to Bellingham, who is a couple of years younger than him. So overall, I think that's very good. Also, it's nice to see that Lucien Favre is making use of Thomas Delaney as well and switching that up a little bit with Bellingham. I think that substitution also depends a bit on the scoreline. But nevertheless, it's nice to see that he's utilizing most of his midfielders, given Modahoud hasn't featured yet. But there's a lot of competition, and I think that really helps Dortmund in the long run. And as you guys both mentioned, with the season being this long, there's little doubt that everyone will get plenty amount of playing time, and who knows what injuries will do to the team. I mean, it's already starting, unfortunately. So that's obviously a factor, and in the end, we'll be lucky if we find 2 guys to play the double pivot. Who knows? But I think we can go on to predictions, and I think. I don't know if we'll extra preview the Super Cup or not, so maybe just predict this as well now. So Matthias, you can go first. What's the final score against Augsburg and then against Bayern in the Super Cup?
So I think against Augsburg, I think Dortmund will win 4-1 because Daniel Caligiuri plays for Augsburg and seemingly he just scores against Dortmund. So it'll be, I don't know, some kind of set piece or something. But I think Dortmund will win 4-1 against a subpar Augsburg. And I think Dortmund will lose in the Super Cup to 2-0.
All right, Adam.
Thinking 3-1 because I have a 3-1 Dortmund win against Augsburg because I have a little bit more faith in Gietkovic, I guess. And in the Super Cup, I'm afraid we're going to see a 3-1 again, this one not on the side of Dortmund.
Yeah, my prediction is actually that Dortmund score 4 on Augsburg, but I also foresee that both Gregoritsch and Caligiuri will grab a goal against Dortmund. So the final score in my prediction against Augsburg is 4-2, and I also think that Bayern will win this 3-1. Who knows? Maybe they even have more fun and just completely shellac Dortmund, which is obviously a good segue to our Schalke segment. Because Schalke may obviously get relegated this season. Who knows? The only bright spot, I think, in their 8-0 shellacking by Bayern Munich was maybe Paciencia. He looked okayish, but otherwise than that was a terrible game. So, Adam, I think I've requested you to look for stats which expose how terrible Schalke are right now. So, please come forward with what you have prepared for us.
Oh gosh, there were some stats for sure to show how bad Schalke was. So I mentioned the progressive passing distance before. So on the match day, they had the second fewest progressive passing yards of any team. Just Mainz had a lower total. And we also have progressive carrying yards, which is just movement towards the goal with the ball at your feet. And they were second worst in that. And the same team was not trailing them that time as Freiburg. So overall, they had the fewest progressive yards overall in the entire match day, which part of that, of course, is that they're facing Bayern Munich, but part of that is just they were really that bad. Like, some of it, too, is they had pretty low possession against Bayern. But look at a team like Arminia Bielefeld, they had very low possession as well. I think they just had an extra % higher than Schalke, but they had considerably more progressive yardage. So they were moving the ball more, even though they didn't have it quite as much. So that was pretty bad. Another thing that I alluded to before was the number of pressures applied. So the player with the most pressures in that Bayern match was Thomas Müller, and he had more than any player on Schalke. Schalke did have a few more. They had 149 pressures to Bayern's 140. Now, when you consider the difference between the amounts of possession the teams had, and you possession adjust those, it's more like Bayern had like 189 and Schalke was more like 118. So Bayern was scoring more, and man, they were just trying harder. So there's that to point to as well. And it's another way to reflect that too is that Bayern made only 11% of their passes while they were under pressure, whereas Schalke made 22% of their passes while a Bayern player was pressuring them. So just a pressuring onslaught from Bayern, and Schalke was not living up to it.
Yeah, and as you previously mentioned, that both Gregoritsch and Caligiuri looked rather okay for Augsburg, also not great for Schalke. Matthias, I'll phrase this question a little bit differently. Do you think it was smart of the Deutsche Fußballliga to schedule this sort of easily predictable shellacking, stomping, whatever you want to call it, as really the Bundesliga opener for ESPN to showcase the new league and whatnot, considering how terrible Schalke are, and obviously Bayern now right from the get-go in first place and Schalke right from the get-go in last place?
Well, it's difficult because obviously the curtain raiser of the Bundesliga season now for a number of years has been the defending champion starting on a Friday night. Could they maybe have put somebody else in there aside from Schalke? Okay, yeah, maybe. Obviously, the best one would have been maybe Dortmund against Bayern from the get-go. I don't know. I don't really. Dortmund against Gladbach would have been a better showcase.
Last season when it was Hertha, and I think it ended in a 2-2 draw.
Yeah, it wasn't great, but it's Bayern. They won the treble, whatever you want to call it. They're the best team in the world right now. You can't blame them for wanting to showcase the most popular German team, especially abroad. And they definitely showcased themselves. Schalke is just, they're just abjectly crap right now, and it's just not going to get much better. Granted, it probably can't get much worse, right?
No, probably not. I don't foresee them losing this high again before playing Bayern. But who knows? So the rumor mill has it that the successor of David Wagner could be Mark Wilmots, former known as Belgium coach, very unsuccessful Belgium coach. Matthias, you already laughed. I think this would make things actually even worse.
Willi das Kampfschwein.
Yeah, what?
I mean, come on, man. Really? Tönnies isn't there anymore. You don't have to do stupid shit anymore, Schalke. You can actually do something halfway intelligent. And of the people on this kind of short list and rumor mill, Sandro Schwarz is on there, who I think actually kind of, okay. But I think they conceded 8 in a match at Mainz. I can't remember exactly, or 7. I don't know, a lot. But Sandro Schwarz would make way more sense than Wilmots. Wilmots, that's such a Schalke move. That's like Dortmund bringing in Jürgen Kohler as the next manager. Kohler is a legend, and I will always love the man. But and Wilmots as a Schalke player was legend, cult, fantastic. But give me a break. That's just, oh God, go for it, man. Schalke, if you're desperate to get relegated, get Mark Wilmots. Do us that favor, because if Schalke are that stupid, then they deserve to get relegated, and I won't feel bad at all. I've always stated, I think we said it last season, I don't really want Schalke to get relegated because we don't need more Wolfsburgs and Leipzigs, and we lose these traditional clubs like a Hamburg or a Kaiserslautern or even a Schalke, and you would lose the Revier Derby, which is a key element of the Bundesliga. But if you're just so desperate to shoot yourself in the foot, go for it, man. You deserve it.
Yeah, Adam, did you see a relegation candidate there on the field on Friday night?
I think the most simple way to answer is probably yes. It's hard to gauge it too, because Bayern also just put up 8 against Barcelona, and they're probably not a relegation candidate. But this just felt bad. Plus, it's 17 matches in a row that it's felt this bad, so it's feeling like it.
Yeah. I should have mentioned that right at the start. It's basically a whole half series that Schalke now are winless, which is honestly amazing. And what is more likely, that Schalke failed to win a single game this season, or that Bayern win every game this season, or go unbeaten? Adam, what do you think is the more likelier case? I think someone made a Twitter poll out of this.
Oh gosh, I'd probably go with Bayern winning every game, unfortunately.
Yeah, fair enough. So, I think we can wrap it up here now that we have reveled in enough Schadenfreude. Well, there's never enough Schadenfreude, but you know what I mean. Matthias, thanks again for coming on and opining on the old Ballspielverein. Please tell our listeners how to get in touch with you on the Twitter webs.
You can find me on Twitter at Matthias Hug.
Very well. And Adam, also thank you to you for coming on and lending us your expertise and your insight with the statistics. So please also tell our listeners how to get in touch with you on the Bird app.
Oh, sure thing. It's Fußballtwit on Twitter. Those hockey style stats that you mentioned are at dorowski.com/BVB, and the rest of the stats I talk about are on FBref.
Yeah, very well. Awesome. You can find me on Twitter at Stefan Butzko, and you can find all of us at Yellowwallpod on Twitter and Facebook. And if you want to read our written content, you will find that on theyellowwall.net. And if you want to contribute financially, go to patreon.com/theyellowwall. You could subscribe to this podcast via YouTube, Stitcher, Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, etc. And as always, everyone out there, thank you for listening. Until next week, goodbye.